in Kansas City, Missouri, USA, at a hotel called the President Hotel on January 2, 1935. One of the strangest incidents took place that is still considered an unsolved mystery to this day. This case was called the case of Room 1046, which is the room in which the massacre took place. One of the oddities of this strange incident is that there is no criminal or even a suspect in it. The issue is mysterious in every sense of the word. January 2, 1935. In Kansas, Missouri, in a hotel, USA. The hotel is so huge and big that it is difficult for you to imagine how many rooms this hotel has. One day, an unknown man who did not bear his real name came, but rather booked the room under a false name and asked the receptionist to give him a room on a high floor that had no windows, or any areas where what is happening in the room can be seen, that is, to put it bluntly, an isolated room. The best option was room 1046 on the 10th floor. And he actually booked it under the name Roland T. Owen. On January 3, 1935. That is, one day after Owen entered the hotel, and when most of the visitors to the hotel were outside. Throughout the day, the maid in charge of cleaning the rooms wanted Mary's subject to open the door of the room to clean her, but she found it closed, so she knocked to answer her, Owen, and he opened the door for her to find the room dark and submerged in near darkness. She told him that she would return later and insisted on that, but she entered in the end after a request from the guy. When she entered, she found strange drawings present, and there was no single source of light except a lamp on the table, which frightened her. Owen asked her to leave the door open because he would receive his friend at a later time, then he left. After 4 hours, Mary returned again to room 1046, carrying new, pure tissues and towels to put in the unknown man's room, but this time she found him other than what she had left. She opened the door and entered to find him lying in his bed fully clothed and falling into a deep sleep. But the strange thing was that she found a note on the bedside table written on it, Dawn, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Wait. The next morning, i.e. January 4th, the strange occurrences of the maid Soptic continued with room 1046. At about 10:30 in the morning, I stopped to make the beds and found that Owen's door was locked from the outside, so I thought that there was no one inside, because it is normal that the door when it is closed from the outside, that means that the person has gone out and closed the door, so I decided to open the door to be shocked that Owen is there inside, sitting in a chair in the corner of the room in complete darkness. While Subtech the maid was cleaning, the phone rang to answer Owen and he said, No, I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. I just had breakfast. Mary came again at 4 p.m. to bring the towels to his room. But this time, when I went to open the door, I heard another man's voice in room 1046. I quickly knew it wasn't Owen's voice. She explained that she was only just putting in new towels, but he told her in a loud, deep voice to leave and said they had enough towels. She knew he was lying because she herself had removed all the towels in the room in the morning, but Subtic left the two men alone and left. That afternoon, the President Hotel has received 2 other people whose presence will contribute greatly to the mystery of what happened to the mysterious man Roland T. Owen is in room 1046. The first person is Jan Owen. Her story is that she came to Kansas City to meet a friend, and she decided that instead of driving all the way to her hometown on the outskirts of town, she will spend the night in a hotel. And when I got to the hotel, I booked room 1048, that is, the room directly next to Roland's. That night, she hears a recurring commotion in the room of the mysterious man Roland. She said, I heard a lot of noises that seemed to be on the same floor, and this noise seemed to be a man and a woman fighting loudly and uttering a lot of insults. When the noise continued, I was about to call the office employee, but I decided not to. The second person is not a hotel guest. The elevator operator described her as looking like a businesswoman. She asked to go up to the 10th floor, the same floor as the mystery man. The worker said that she often frequented the rooms of the hotel's male clients late at night. On the evening of January 4th, she entered the hotel looking for a man in room 1026. He seemed desperate for him. After more than an hour of searching all floors of the hotel, she did not find him, so she went back and left the hotel. The strange thing is that on the same night, a taxi driver named Robert Wayne had reported picking up a strange man near the hotel. He said the man was wearing only short shorts and a t-shirt and looked defeated. The strange man told him he was going to kill that man tomorrow. He left, leaving the taxi driver confused. The latter was terrified and asked the man. He got out of his car, and the man was never heard from again. On the morning of January 4th, around 7 a.m., a hotel employee noticed a broken phone in room 1046. They discovered that the phone had been off for several hours, so they decided to send the employee, Randolph, to solve the problem. But when he got to the room, he found a "Do Not Disturb" sign hanging on the door. He decided to knock on the door, but no one answered him. He kept knocking until Randolph decided to open the door. But he couldn't because the door was closed. He decided to speak out loud to tell Owen to plug the phone back into the wall. Then he left. After an hour, the phone was still off and they felt something was wrong with it. They decided to send another employee to the mysterious man's room. It was strange that the door was still locked, but this time the employee had the master key to the room, so he decided to open it to find Owen lying in his bed completely naked and drunk from a lot of drinking. The employee reconnected the phone and went out at full speed. The strange thing is that for the second time the phone was turned off again an hour after it was reconnected. The employee was sent back to the room, but this time the shock was more than the employee could bear. He found the room as a massacre. Blood everywhere. The mysterious man, Owen, was sitting in the corner of the room, his head in his hands, his body riddled with stab wounds. The bed sheets, towels, and handkerchiefs were stained with blood. The walls, ceiling, and floor were blood red. The employee rushed to help him and realized that he was still alive. The police were immediately contacted, and Owen was taken directly to the hospital, where the doctors discovered that Owen had been severely tortured as his arms, legs, and neck were tied with a telephone wire, and part of his skull was broken and his chest had several stab wounds and a large hole in the lung. Owen was still able to speak to the police. They questioned him to find out who did it to him, but he claimed no one attacked him. He said he just fell into the bathtub. The strange question that all investigators asked was what made him lie while he was dying. During the investigation, the police found no weapon or sign of forced entry into the room. With the amount of damage and wounds on Owen's body, the police concluded that he must have been attacked by someone else. Room 1046 was completely swept. Different fingerprints were found on the phone in the room, but the fingerprints could not be identified. The weirdness persisted. Because there were absolutely no clothes in the room and nothing matched Roland Owen's description when he checked into the hotel. Cleaning tools such as soap and toothpaste were missing, and there was nothing that could have been the murder weapon, and the doctors said that the wounds he sustained were at least from the beginning of the day, specifically at 4:30 in the morning. During the investigation, Owen fell into a coma, only to die shortly after his arrival at the hospital on January 5, 1935. After his death, the police were to identify the body and tell the family of his death, but they were unable to identify Owen nor his family. The reason was, investigators concluded that Roland T. Owen never existed. A man who doesn't exist. There was no record of any such man by that name anywhere in the United States. Shortly thereafter, the hotel next door that Owen had been complaining about so much came forward, claiming that a man matching the description had stayed at the hotel on January 1st. He had checked into the hotel under the name Eugene K. Scott. Again, after further investigation, the police came to the same conclusion that no one had the name Eugene K. Scott has no record whatsoever in America. Because Owen didn't have ID, the police put his body on display for people to claim, which was very common at the time and a work in progress. Unfortunately, no one was able to identify this unknown man. To further the investigation, the authorities tried to find the man named Don, who the maid overheard Owen talking to on the phone. They suspected that Don was the man who was talking to Mary when she was trying to deliver towels to Owen's room. Unfortunately, the police could not obtain a single piece of evidence. Owen's body was placed in a funeral home, and after a while the house received a phone call from an anonymous person who wanted to pay for Owen's entire funeral. On March 23rd, the money was sent to a funeral home. After his burial, there were flowers left on his grave by someone who discovered that the flowers had been sent from the Rock Flower Company and had a welcome card attached that read "Love Forever, Lewis." A year passed and there was no evidence of the case or Owen's identity. Within that year, a woman named Ruby was reading a magazine an article about Owen's death and, to her surprise, realized that this man was in fact her son. Ruby explained how her son left Birmingham in 1934 to travel to the United States. Roland T. Owen's real name was 17-year-old Artemis Ogletree. When he first left, he texted his mother constantly, but as time went on, he didn't text her. Nadra, the woman who claims he is her son, says she felt very sad because of the fact that she didn't know that something had happened to her son. She said she usually received handwritten letters from her son, but in the spring of 1935 she received 3 letters that were all written at once. The strange thing, she says, was that Owen didn't even know how to use a typewriter. The second strange thing that I discovered was that she was receiving messages from her son after his death, and the evidence is the dates of the messages sent. To this day, this case is considered a mystery, as the crime of room 1046 is one of the most mysterious cases, especially since the victim in the case is a 17-year-old man without any identity card, and it is unknown even who he is, and there are no suspects in the case, not even the reasons or motives for the crime. Perhaps this will remain the case is unknown and mysterious for life.